Hey, what's up guys? John here. Inflation rose for the second month.
A new report shows U.S. inflation picked up in August. The Consumer Price Index shows prices climbed 3.7% compared to a year ago, more than expected.
And what I believe is going to happen next is Jerome Powell is going to continue to increase interest rates, putting more pressure on this economy. But there's a really sinister thing that's happening behind the scenes that nobody is talking about that I think is going to restructure America and change everything that we know. And I'm going to break it down for you clearly with verifiable facts so you can make smart, well-informed, forward-thinking decisions based on reality, not based on a lie that the mainstream media is selling us. Drop it below. We'll talk about this because this is absolutely insane. Hit the like button. When you hit the like button, YouTube will share this content to educate more people about what's really going on. And if you want to fix your credit, you want to position yourself for the greatest wealth transfer of all time, which we are in now. You can't deny it. It started in 2020. It's ramping up now. The next couple years, it's going to get insane. You're going to want great credit. Go to greatcreditfast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any negative item on your credit report, don't let it sit there. One negative item can sit on your report for upwards of 7 years. One late payment can drop your credit score upwards of 180 points, taking away the opportunity of being able to invest in distressed real estate and making some life-changing moves. So go to greatcreditfast.com. Take a look at this. August core inflation, excluding food and energy, rose 0.3%, hotter than expected. Inflation ticked up the second consecutive month. Well, here it's very interesting. The last year and a half, we've essentially been living on our reserves. America's been living on our reserves. Well, now we are at a 40-year low, a 40-year low. And they said right here, October 18th, 2022, that the only way in which they are going to buy more oil is if it is priced between $67 and $72 per barrel, right? Well, they said that, again, they said this in 2022, October. So right here, they had an opportunity. They had an opportunity December 5th to stock up. They did not. Why? They had another opportunity in March 13th of this year, or excuse me, this was on March 13th. They had an option of $68, right? They did not. Why? Well, I'm going to tell you why. They're intentionally not going to stock up because they want the cost of everything to increase. Because as the cost of everything increases and they continue to increase interest rates, they are going to start to push forward the solution. Problem, reaction, solution. They're going to push forward the solution, but many people aren't ready for this solution. Here's how this is going to work. So, and they're ramping up. They're ramping up the pain to ensure that, that people are going to demand a solution. Biden administration cancels oil and gas leases in Arctic wildlife refuge, right? The move comes as the Biden administration seeks to expand protections against oil and gas development on public lands. This came out the 6th of September. So literally 5 days ago, 6 days ago, they came out with this. So when you start to look at this and you see, okay, well, how is this whole thing going to play out? What is this going to really look like? What I think they're first going to do is they're going to go after landlords even more. And I've been talking about this for a while on this channel, that landlords have not seen pain just yet. Sure, they saw eviction moratoriums in 2020 and 2021, but that was just the start. That was just the start. That was a testing ground. That was warming people up for real draconian measures that I believe are going to be coming from property owners. So when they say that inflation is 70% of the reason that we are in this situation with this record high inflation, and then you look at whitehouse.gov, July 27th, 2023, they go on to say, here are a few things that we could possibly do. We could reduce barriers to build housing, like restrictive and costly land use and zoning rules, expanding financing for affordable, energy efficient, resilient housing, and promoting commercial to residential conversion opportunities, particularly for affordable and zero emission housing. And then they go on to list a bunch of other things, including this, which is the White House blueprint for the Renters' Bill of Rights, which will allow the White House to essentially take a federal approach on landlord-tenant law. Think about that. Before, you would invest in San Francisco or LA, or you'd invest in New York City, you would know that it's much more tenant-friendly, and you would be investing knowing that information. You would go to Florida and Texas, and you would invest knowing, as a landlord, you'd have more rights as a property owner. But when you start to push forward federal policy on property, it's something that everyone needs to be aware of. Even if you think it's going to happen or not going to happen, look at this, because I believe it's something to take very seriously. They're talking about allowing eviction prevention and diversion and relief. They're talking about allowing tenants to essentially go on strike on your property. They're talking about education, enforcement, enhancement of rights. They're talking about, they say, clear and fair leases. This allows attorneys to be able to comb through your leases and define what they say is fair. So this puts landlords in a very, very difficult position all at the same time, where landlords are already in a really challenging spot because of what's happening right now in commercial real estate. Commercial real estate, there's $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion that has to get refinanced by 2025, right? It says the risk of default in commercial real estate market is growing as office retail property valuations could drop by as much as 40%, while nearly $1.5 trillion in debt is due by the end of 2025, according to an analyst at Morgan Stanley. The recent banking failure and complicating matters even further small and regional banks. Now, when they talk about regional banks, I think a lot of people think that they look at Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic. They look at PacWest getting acquired by Bank of California, and they say, okay, that might be the end of it. They're putting the pressure on these regionals even more, because look at this. So they are pushing forward these new regulations, which demands that they increase their debt load by $70 billion, right? It says right here, U.S. banks to raise $70 billion in debt under draft rules aimed at mitigating failures. Regional banks may saddle themselves with $63 billion in fresh debt to meet regulatory requirements. So think about this. The regional banks have less money than ever. America will likely run out of excess savings this quarter. They have less money than ever. They're sitting on 70%. They're sitting on 70% of all commercial real estate debt. So of that 1.5 trillion, they're sitting on $1 trillion of it that has to get refinanced over the next 18 months. They have less deposits in which they normally invest to make profits to stay in business. And now they're getting hit with more regulation. So it's one big power move after the next going after the U.S. economy. And so when you look at this information, it would be very challenging to say, okay, maybe this is all just random, it's not intentional, but just do the math. Look at things. Look at things from a perspective of, look at this bottle of water, right? This bottle of water, if oil prices were, let's say, $1.50 a gallon, obviously the distributor and the trucking company would be able to reprice in accordance with their prices, right? Because their prices would be much lower and those prices would be passed on to me as a consumer. But if gas is $5.50 a gallon or $6 a gallon, and they have to ship and distribute this, then maybe this comes from Italy, they have to, has to take a flight over to America, has to get to a trucking company, maybe in Los Angeles, that trucker has to then drive it to my location. All of these costs increase, meaning my costs increase. So if my costs are going to continue to rise, obviously the inflation numbers are going to seem much more stubborn. But if they were to drive down energy prices, we would see a completely different inflation report. And that's why I personally believe they want inflation to go up. They want this massive power grab to happen. And I believe that we are going to start to see a lot of landlords leave the business. It's very simple. If you just look at CNBC, they had an article that came out maybe a month and a half ago, and they were talking about institutional investors and corporations saying that they're going to go from owning 5% of all single-family rentals in America to owning a whopping 40%. Whopping 40%. So they're going to increase their position in single-family rentals 8x in the next 6 years, right? So this is the great rug pull in the economy that I've been warning about. When I said it started in 2020, that was a very, very slow start. It's going to ramp up dramatically as they continue to increase interest rates and blame inflation as being so stubborn. The only way in which they can solve it is by increasing interest rates. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that this rug pull is going to be dramatic. It's going to be far worse than anything we've witnessed in the past. When they say soft landing, all you have to do is go to Google. Just type in every time the Fed said soft landing. You'll see they said it in the 1970s, and right before everything hit the fan. They said the same thing in the 80s. They said the same thing in the 90s, the real estate crash. Same thing after the dot-com bubble. They said the same thing in 2007 and 2008 when everything hit the fan. They said soft landing incoming. It was never a soft landing. But now consumers are in a way worse situation, banks are in a way worse situation, and the global economy is way worse off today than it's ever been before. So I don't think we're going to see something that is just going to be a little, bump in the road. I think we're going to see something dramatic, and I think consumers are not ready for just what's going to happen. Banks are going to continue to tighten up lending as the losses start to tick in, and I think that we're going to likely see the beginning of these losses October 1st is going to start. Student loans. You have 44.5 million Americans that are going to have to start making student loan payments. The average payment is $504 a month. That is a huge number. It's almost like a car payment. So you're going to have 44 million Americans are going to start having to make almost a car payment starting October 1st. What is that going to do? It's going to start tipping the dominoes for more and more and more defaults. So I think we're going to start to really see things start October 1st, and it's just going to ramp up as that data comes in about defaults. We're going to start seeing auto repossessions, all of these problems, and then this is going to give them the perfect reason to push forward this solution. What do you think about it? Drop below. Let's have a conversation about this. And if you want to fix your credit, you want to position yourself for the greatest wealth transfer of all time, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link below in the description for a free strategy session. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any negative items on your credit report, don't let it sit there. Don't let one or a few items get in the way of a bright future. Go to GreatCreditFast.com, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.